If the point of the preseason is to be an extension of practice and get better every single outing, well, mission accomplished in San Antonio. The Orlando Magic make their progress today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 9th. It will be October 10th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Thank you so much for making me a part of your hurricane festivities. If you're able to listen to this, hopefully I'm able to upload this. I'm recording this at about 11 p.m. just as a really nasty band is coming through from Hurricane Milton. Please, if you're listening to this on Hurricane Day or not, stay safe. I hope I can give you a little bit of entertainment during the boredom that is waiting out a storm of this magnitude. Having said that, on today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic play a solid game. Oh boy, there goes a flash flood warning in effect in my area. Thank you for that. The Orlando Magic play a solid game against the San Antonio Spurs. The starters show the progress they need to show, what they showed, and what it means, plus Jett Howard's breakout. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, whether it's when your power comes back on, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Search for Locked On and the team you're looking for while your phone still has battery. Download them all and listen to them today. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So there's a lot of cliches about preseason basketball. And we don't need to get into so many of the details of this game and details of what happens in a preseason game. I cannot stress this enough. I do not care that the Magic lost this game. In fact, Jalen Suggs, Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner, the three starters who played because Kentavious Caldwell-Pope sat out, obviously Wendell Carter sat out, they were at worst plus 12. So frankly, the Magic won the minutes that they needed to win, that I actually care about and that actually means something. They won those minutes and won them pretty comfortably. We'll get to the areas that the team needs to improve, but if preseason is merely an extension of practice, that means it's about applying what you're working on. And in that sense, Monday's opener against New Orleans, like I said in that episode, it wasn't like the Magic were so bad that it was a cause for alarm. They just weren't good. The good moments weren't there long enough for us to feel really good about things. And it wasn't a sterling performance. It showed that, okay, there's still work to do here. Wednesday, the starters came out and frankly put a lot of that to bed. Frankly, this was a showing that said, okay, they are much closer than we think they were. And sure, maybe it's because New Orleans is a good team and San Antonio is a better team than they were last year, but not quite a good team yet. But the Magic made progress. The big concern coming out of Monday's game was turnovers. The Magic had 23 turnovers for 26 points. In this game, they ended with 20 turnovers for 30 points, so that might be worse, and it's the reason why they lost this game. But in the first quarter, the Magic had one turnover. Among the Magic starters, and the starters in this game with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Wendell Carter sitting out was Jett Howard and Goga Bitadze, the Magic had only 5 turnovers. And those came in the third quarter largely. So again, there's still a lot to clean up. Are the Magic ready to play a regular season game? No. And we'll get to that issue coming up in a bit, but the Magic looked significantly better. They made progress, and it was progress on both sides of the basketball. We'll get to Jett Howard. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about him. It was progress on both sides of the basketball. Just bigger picture items. It was the ball moving really, really cleanly and crisply to the open man. Paolo Banchero I want to start with this story then. Before the game, Jamal Mosley, when asked why Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was not going to play or if he was worried about him integrating with the team with him not playing, he said, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a veteran. He knows how to get himself ready. And that's how I felt a lot of Monday's game. That's again how I felt coming out of Wednesday's game too. There are a lot of guys on this team that know the drill here and know what they need to get out of these games and aren't trying to overexert themselves. They definitely put more intention, more intensity, and more effort into this game than maybe they did Monday afternoon. But the Magic made serious progress in that regard and measurable and showable progress in that regard. It starts with the fact that Paolo Banchero was still just this dominant figure in the game. He did not have a lot of counting stats. Finished the game with 6 points, 3 for 6 shooting. Ended with 3 turnovers, but again, no turnovers in the first quarter stint. He had all 3 of his turnovers in that second quarter stint. In fact, Paolo and Franz had all of their turnovers in the first half. Paolo had 3 in the second quarter. Franz had 1 in the first, 1 in the second. That's the 5 turnovers the Magic had. If they're going to have 5 turnovers combined, the Magic are probably doing okay. But Paolo still dominated this game because he had 6 rebounds guarding Victor Wembanyama, I might add, and then added 17 assists for good measure. Or not 17 assists. That would be amazing. He had 7 assists for good measure, which is still pretty good. And these were really, really nice passes. He had one really nice bounce pass between 2 defenders to Jett Howard for a dunk on a cut along the baseline. He had another really good pass where he got a rebound, got kind of stuck underneath the basket with Wembanyama bearing down on him, and kicked it out to Jett Howard, who got a 4-point play. He had one really nice spin move. His best offensive play was getting a spin move where he spun past his man and dunked the ball. Paolo was just kind of playing at his own tempo and at his own pace. And that's all the Magic need right now. That's all the Magic need to see. And that's all Paolo needs to do. Defensively, Orlando was really good at communicating. They were much more on the same page defensively. There are fewer of those defensive breakdowns that we saw on Monday. They were scrambling. They were talking. They were switching. Everything and everyone seemed to be in sync. Goga Bitadze is a fantastic defender. He looked really, really good. Had a couple of block shots. He actually had 3 block shots in this game, 2 of them on Wemby. He played really, really well. And the Magic as a whole played really well. Jalen Suggs was much more intense. He maybe gambled a little too much still, but, got over screens and made life hard for Chris Paul. It was a game where the Magic got their work in. And again, I don't think they were trying to overexert themselves. There were a few occasions where they had second and third efforts that they could have given and need to give when the games count. But in the preseason, they know what they need to do to get themselves ready. They know what they need to do to be on the same page and get used to each other. And again, Monday, they looked out of sync. They looked off kilter. Wednesday, they looked so much better. I'd even argue Franz Wagner. 8 points, 3 for 9 shooting, missed both of his 3-pointers again. Not the cleanest game. 2 of those 3 shots, by the way, from Franz were breakaway dunks, were fast break dunks. So he's struggling right now with some of his touch on his floaters. He's not quite getting all the way to the basket the same way. I think his other basket was a putback after he missed a layup. But Franz is doing all the right things. The intention is there. The process is there for him getting the right shots. I don't think any of us are worried that Franz Wagner is going to be ready to play come October 23rd. He's going to be ready to go. This is a team now that very much feels like a veteran team that knows how to play the preseason. The preseason is definitely its own thing. It's important. You get your work in, but it's not everything. You notice I don't care about the result. I'm not, yes, the Magic lost by 10. And that's because, they turned the ball over. And the second unit, as much as they were successful on Monday, struggled a ton in this game. The Magic had 9 turnovers in the second quarter alone. They had 6 in the third quarter. Just a lot of turnovers and fouling was a big issue. And that's normal in the preseason, by the way. Orlando gave up 30 free throws in the game. San Antonio had just 3 free throw attempts in the first quarter. They had 14 in the second. That kind of tells you where that flip switched. And again, as far as those kinds of stats go, I'm really only going to care about what the starters did. And the starters were dominant, plain and simple. They won their minutes. They controlled the tempo of the game. They didn't make those kind of silly mistakes that they made Monday. And that's why I'm not going to be freaking out about turnovers. Cole Anthony struggled in this one. No doubt about it. He had 3 turnovers, led the team with that. Anthony Black also had 3 turnovers. The turnovers were not nearly as out of control as they were in Monday's game. But yeah, the ball started flying around too much. Not the kind of turnovers you want to see. You want to see, you can live with miscommunication turnovers. You can live with aggressive turnovers. It's silly, unnecessary turnovers, kind of undisciplined turnovers. Like Victor Wembanyama had 4 turnovers in this game. A lot of them were from him trying passes that he shouldn't be trying. And him trying to get like a behind the back pass or a highlight reel pass. As good as Victor Wembanyama is, he's still kind of getting himself, kind of the seriousness that you need to play at a high level in the NBA. The Magic had some of those turnovers in the second and third quarters of this game. And that's going to be the point of growth for this team, is to maintain that focus level. That wasn't there Monday. That was certainly there Wednesday. At the end of the day, what the Magic showed us was progress. They showed us that they are taking a step forward. I say this all the time. What I want to see in the preseason is that you get better with each game leading into the regular season, leading into that part where the moment counts, where the games count. The Magic were better on Wednesday than they were Monday. I'm not worried about Paolo. Paolo looks like he's going to have a huge season because he's just being patient and chilling out and doing whatever he wants to do. I'm not even worried about Franz. He'll be fine. Jalen Suggs looked a lot better. No turnovers in this game after 5 on Monday. Looked a lot better controlling tempo of the game. Brought his intensity up on defense. That went to the offensive end. Again, missed some shots. I can live with missed shots at this point. As long as they go when it counts. And look, Orlando, 12 for 38 from 3. I actually like those attempts. They're 4 for 11 in the first quarter. Good start. And of course, a big part of that 3-point shooting was Jett Howard, because we cannot talk about this game without talking about the impact that Jett Howard made, how the Magic's young players looked in their second preseason game. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Obviously, things are on hold here in Central Florida. Friday's game between the Orlando Magic and the New Orleans Pelicans has been canceled, will not be made up. So if you want to see the Orlando Magic in the preseason before the regular season begins, you got only one opportunity to do so. That'll be next Friday against the Philadelphia 76ers. So while you're waiting out the storm, find that next big event you want to go to. Could be Saturday's game between UCF and Cincinnati. And Gametime has your ticket to the game. Gametime even has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've used Gametime before to buy tickets to events, whether it's baseball down in Tampa, whether it's concerts, whether it's shows even at the Dr. Phillips Center. They have everything. I'm usually keeping an eye on several events and hoping to get the best price. I know Gametime is going to deliver that. And with Gametime's all-in pricing, if you toggle the feature, it shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. They give you digital seat views so you can see a digital view from your seat of the stage, the court, the field, whatever it is, and get panoramic views. And with their lowest price guarantee, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price somewhere else. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. I want to thank everyone again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Obviously, it is a lazy day here in Central Florida. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I'm recording this at about 11:15 p.m. on October 9th. We're getting a really nasty ban from Hurricane Milton as we speak. I have a little chandelier that's swaying very much. That usually tells me the storm is picking up. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish this episode, finish recording. So I should probably stop doing the sidetrack, but I want to thank everyone for listening to today's episode. Whether you're in Central Florida riding out the storm or elsewhere, we're doing good here. We're doing fine for now. Getting a lot of rain. I just got a flash flood warning on my phone. Flash flood warning on my phone till 2 a.m. here in Orange County. So the storm is serious. We're getting the worst of it here in just a moment. There was a very serious storm, though, brewing in San Antonio, and one that Magic fans have been waiting on for such a long time. Jett Howard on an NBA basketball court, not a G League basketball court, not a Summer League basketball court, but on an NBA basketball court, doing what he does best and showing us what he can be. Again, the Magic decided to rest a lot of guys today. Obviously, Wendell Carter is dealing with the ankle injury. Hopefully, he'll be ready to go next Friday against the Sixers. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope sat out. Gary Harris sat out. Jonathan Isaac sat out. Magic just deciding not to push guys. And again, even so, the Magic said, even though Jamal Mosley said he anticipated to play, Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner about 16 minutes. They did not play the second half. They played about 17 and a half minutes for the game. Got their work in. Got done. Like I said, very professional effort from the Magic. They didn't do more than they had to do. But this is something I've always said about the Magic shooters, whether it's Gary Harris or whether it's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The Magic's success usually means their shooter, their fifth starter, whatever you want to call it, is getting a ton of shots. And obviously, I think one of the issues that we need to see the Orlando Magic improve upon this year is they need to be a bit more of a volume shooting team. They need to take more threes. They need to get more threes. And that is something that Jett Howard provides this team. The ball worked to Jett Howard really, really well. And that dude is not shy about shooting. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing in this instance. That's what the Magic need. Howard had his breakout game. 19 points, 6 for 10 shooting, 3 for 7 from 3, 4 for 4 from the foul line, including making a 4-point play. 3 assists on top of it all, 2 steals, 1 turnover. Jett Howard looked like he belonged on an NBA floor. He looked comfortable in the role that the Magic had as that designated shooter, as someone who could space the floor. He was in the right spots. He floated into the right areas. The Magic were able to work the ball to him, get him open looks, and the dude made them. Again, that's half the battle, is making your shots. This is always what you envision from Jett Howard. This is always what the Magic were looking for when they drafted him with the 11th pick last summer. This is what the Magic hoped to get. This is what he did at Michigan, where he was just a volume shooter who made teams pay for leaving him open and could get his shot off quickly and with little space. That, frankly, is the element that's missing from this Magic team. You look at the shooters that the Magic have, even the shooters that they like, they're not quick trigger shooters. Jalen Suggs is a decent shooter. He's become a decent shooter, but he's not rising up over someone and making a quick jumper after he takes the ball. That's something Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is good at, by the way. He will float into open space and shoot shots pretty quickly. Jett Howard is that player. That's why they drafted him. And what he showed us on Wednesday is exactly what the Magic are looking for. Now, does that translate into minutes? Does that translate into him being in the game more? Does that translate into him beating out Gary Harris for a spot in the rotation? I think that's going to continue to develop throughout the course of the season. I would say that one thing, and Jett is the first person to tell you this too, he has to continue improving on defense. He lost to Julian Champagnie a few times early in the game. His defense is much better. Do not get this wrong. He is a much better defender than he was. But there's still some finer details. Paolo's not great off the ball either. That's an area that he has to continue to get better at. He left his man open in the corner a few times. He was trying to help on Wembanyama. That's certainly a fine choice to make. I'm not going to argue that, but it's easy. It's sometimes a little too easy for Magic to lose guys on the perimeter. Again, some of this is just details they got to continue to fine tune, or a lever that they need to switch. I would argue, and maybe everyone hates this notion, but it felt like the Magic were willing to make first and second efforts, not the third efforts. And it's the third efforts that differentiate good defenses from great defenses. The Magic aren't gonna do that in the preseason. There's no reason to push yourself more than you really have to in this stage. Because again, this team knows what it's doing. It knows how to play these games. But Jett is not one of those players. Jett has to be at full tilt every moment he's on the floor because he's fighting for attention. He's fighting for his playing time. And this is the encouraging thing. This is the big thing. there's going to be a moment this season where the Magic are going to need Jett Howard, whether it's because Gary Harris is hurt, which happens a lot. It could be some other injury in the lineup. What the Magic tested Wednesday was whether Jett could step up to the plate. And yes, it's just preseason. It's not everything. But the fact that Howard was able to play this way, the fact that Howard was able to play like this is a sure sign that he can step into this role. Again, I always say this, whether it's summer league or whether it's preseason, it's better to know a guy can do something than he can't. If Jett Howard would have had a 6.2-for-4 showing in a game like this, not the end of the world, doesn't really say anything, but it kind of tells us, okay, maybe he's not ready to step into that role. First quarter, Jett Howard had 8 points on 3-for-4 shooting, 2 for 3 from 3. He had 7 more points in the second quarter. Again, playing largely with the starters or mostly with the starters. I don't really care what he did with the bench guys. That, yes, do well. That's fine. But he did his work when the starters were setting him up. And that means they can do that again. So what we learned from Jett Howard in this game is that if his number is called, he is capable of delivering for the Magic. Now, again, obviously the preseason is different than the regular season, both with the intensity and the rotations. Paolo Banchero isn't getting his normal shot diet. Franz Wagner isn't getting his normal shot diet. They're kind of picking their spots in a different way than maybe they would in the regular season. Magic are not playing with regular season intensity or shot volume, to be perfectly honest. Certainly not minutes. They're maybe deferring a little bit more than they might otherwise. But the fact that they can now see and feel Howard do this, that should build trust with the coaching staff if he wants to get into the rotation or be an option for them in the rotation. And B, more importantly, it should continue to build trust with his teammates. Not that his teammates don't trust him and don't believe what he's capable of doing, but this helps them say, okay, we saw it on the court. We've seen it now. If I pass the ball to Jett Howard, he's going to make a shot. In fact, honestly, I thought the more impressive thing was the 3 assists. That Jett Howard made a couple threes, watched the defense close in on him, and then kicked it down to Tristan da Silva in the corner, or to Jalen Suggs at the top of the key, or to Franz Wagner. And even though they didn't make those shots, the fact that Jett knows he's on a heater, but knows the right passes to make the next pass, that's even bigger. Again, probably the most important play of the game. Early third quarter, I believe it was, or late second quarter. Paolo Banchero gets reaches over, I believe it was Blake Wesley for a rebound. Gets the ball underneath the basket. Victor Wembanyama closing in on him between him and the basket. He's not going to make that shot. He knows that. He's not going to force it. He kicks it out to Jett Howard. Howard drains a 3 and I believe draws a foul. And Paolo's the first person there to congratulate him and get in on him there. That is a play Paolo probably doesn't make last year or 2 years ago. Certainly not 2 years ago. Probably not last year. That is an unselfish play to a frankly unproven player, where the unproven player proved himself. If anything, Jett Howard proved himself in this game, showed us exactly what he can be and what he can do with opportunity. Now, when that opportunity comes, that's the ultimate question. That's the next question. That'll be the big question, though, that we'll have to wait to find out for a little while, because the Magic have canceled their preseason game on Friday. We'll go through the rest of the box score and talk about where the Magic are going to be during the storm coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel has so many great offers for you, whether it's betting on the Orlando Magic's over/under of 47.5 wins, whether it's betting on the Magic to win the Southeast Division at -140, or preparing for opening night when the Orlando Magic face the Miami Heat. They are 1-point underdogs, +1 on that game. If you're looking ahead to football this weekend after the storm is gone, UCF currently 3.5-point favorites over Cincinnati. That game is still scheduled to be played, and the Storms will be gone by Saturday. Hopefully we will have a kickoff at the Bounce House on Saturday, see if the Knights can get back on their feet. FanDuel has so many great offers, and they have even one more for you. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's all available at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. One more player that I need to mention. I don't want to leave the show without mentioning this. Goga Bitadze was amazing as he always is. 4 for 9 shooting, 8 points, 11 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds, just 3 block shots, just an absolute workhorse on the interior. Just did every little thing that the Magic needed, just scrounged out extra possessions, really outworked and out-physical Victor Wembanyama on the offensive glass especially. Did all the things that we expect Goga Bitadze to do. Defended well, scavenged, set good screens. He is just so reliable. And look, I was very surprised that he opted to re-sign with the Orlando Magic. I thought that there would be someone that would give him a clear backup center role, and I want that for him. I want him to play consistently because that dude is a player. It is an incredible luxury for the Orlando Magic to have Goga Bitadze. He's just so good. To have that as a third center who may not play very much, just an unbelievable luxury for this team. So I think we'll talk a little bit more Goga Bitadze tomorrow. If there is an episode tomorrow, that depends on whether I have power or not. We'll talk a little bit more about Goga Bitadze and what we've learned in the preseason so far tomorrow, but I have to make sure I mention Bitadze. I also have to make sure I mention Anthony Black, one more player as well. 11 points, 6 rebounds for Anthony Black, 3 for 5. Really loved 4 for 5 from the foul line, which is really good. I loved how he got downhill in this game, did a really good job. He continues to do a good job controlling pace and getting himself downhill. His impact, again, he's not trying to do too much. The shot's going to come. He hit a jumper. He hit a nice little step in mid-range jumper. The jumper is still going to be the big question with him. It's going to be the big thing that he's going to have to improve to get more consistent minutes. But I really loved what we saw from Anthony Black, and really he continues to play at a really, really high level, and just a lot to like about him. Obviously, I've mentioned it a few times, though, and I want to just make sure we repeat this and end the show this way because of what's going on here in Orlando. The Magic have canceled their game between them and the New Orleans Pelicans on Friday at the Kia Center. The Magic are essentially stuck in San Antonio. They're going to spend an extra day in San Antonio. They're going to fly back to Orlando on Friday. They are scheduled for now to practice in San Antonio, but obviously things kind of completely up in the air. Thankfully, the Magic are safe. They're obviously not going to fly into Orlando in the middle of the storm. We will be dealing with Hurricane Milton here in Orlando throughout the day Thursday. I think the track has it moving off the coast, has the eye moving off the coast of Florida at around 3 p.m. or so on Thursday. Just because that's where the eye is. There's a big tail on this thing. This is a big, big storm. We've been dealing with the effects of it really since about noon on Wednesday. Again, I'm recording this at about 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. We are getting a really nasty ban right now, and the worst of it is still coming here in the next few hours. So I do want to log off to make sure I can download this, get it uploaded so y'all can have it. So if you're listening to this, that means I still have power and everything's going great. But the Magic are perfectly safe. Hopefully their families, hopefully your family, hopefully everybody that you know here in Central Florida is very, very safe. Fortunately, the Magic were out of town. I'm sure they prefer to be with their families, but fortunately everyone is doing well. And again, I say this all the time to people who aren't from Florida. And I was talking with someone at the grocery store who is not from Florida and was a little bit nervous about the hurricane. I was just like, look, man, there's nothing to do but to ride it out. He was staying at a hotel, and I was like, if you're staying at a hotel, you're probably going to be the safest you can be. Staying at a Disney hotel, actually, it's like even better. Disney, it takes care of people during the hurricanes for when they're riding it out. By the time this gets to Central Florida, to Orlando, it weakens considerably. I think while there's still a very nasty storm surge to our friends in Sarasota, I think we got lucky that this storm started to weaken before it hit land. hits that wind shear on the coast and just sucks the whole power out of the hurricane, a lot of the power out of the hurricane, but obviously still hitting us as a 2-3 category 3 storm. Still very, very serious. And, again, the one thing Florida does very, very well is they handle hurricanes. Like, this is part of our life. We know how to do it. If I seem kind of blasé or jokey about hurricanes, it's because I've been doing this my whole life. I know what this feels like. I know what we're supposed to do here. And I'm going to stop rambling on and let you get back to your day. So if you're listening to me while you're waiting out the storm, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Magic. I hope this has been a nice little distraction for the last half hour. Good reports from the Orlando Magic. Got a lot to be excited about, a lot to be happy about, with the way that they played Wednesday. If you weren't able to watch it, it just a really solid game from them. A lot to be happy about. If you're not listening to this during the storm, then congrats. And I hope the future is great. I'm looking forward to being there in the future with you. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. I've submitted a few articles there. They should be published in the morning. So even if there is a storm and I'm not able to get online, there'll still be stuff on OrlandoMagicDaily.com. That's how much I plan for these hurricanes. For even more Orlando Magic content, you can check out the Orlando Magic Hub, my Patreon page. Check it out for even more Magic content. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to make Locked On Fantasy Basketball your second listen of the day. Become a fantasy basketball expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Josh Lloyd. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Like I said, on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we'll talk a little bit more about what we've learned about the Orlando Magic in the preseason so far, since we're now 2/3 of the way through the games. We'll talk about what we want to still see from this team, what they have to work on for the next week as we get ready for the regular season. Until then, though, please be safe during the storm. We're all here for you. We love you. And we'll see you next time here for another episode of Locked On Magic.